Picture this. You're at a protest, right? The energy's high, people are chanting. And then out of nowhere, this piercing, laser-focused beam of sound just slices through all the noise. It's totally disorienting, it's physically uncomfortable, and it's coming from this weird-looking circular dish on top of a vehicle. So what in the world is that thing? Well, today we're going to break it all down. So your first thought might be, okay, it's just a really, really powerful loudspeaker, a glorified megaphone, right? And you're not totally wrong. But, calling this thing just a loudspeaker is kind of like calling a great white shark just a fish. It seriously misses the bigger and, frankly, much more intimidating picture. So what are we actually looking at here?
And that really gets to the heart of it, doesn't it? This technology lives in a very blurry, very gray area. It has this dual identity that's both fascinating and, yeah, pretty controversial. So is it a tool to communicate, or is it a weapon? The answer, as you're about to see, is, well, it's both.
Okay, so the official name for this gadget is a long-range acoustic device, or LRAD for short. On paper, its main job is to be an acoustic hailing device. It was designed to shoot crystal clear, understandable speech over huge distances. We're talking way, way farther than any bullhorn could ever dream of reaching. But, and this is a huge but, here's where it gets absolutely wild. An LRAD can blast sound at up to 160 decibels. Now, to give you some perspective, that is louder than a jet engine taking off right next to your head. This isn't just about volume anymore. This is a physical force.
So, it all comes down to how it's being used. On one hand, you've got the acoustic hailing device. A Navy ship can use it to talk to a small boat that's over 3,000 meters away to figure out, hey, are you a friend or foe? But on the other hand, you have the sound cannon. With just the flip of a switch, it unleashes this piercing alert tone, and that sound is specifically engineered to cause maximum discomfort. That's the mode used for crowd control, and yep, that's the one that can cause serious pain and even permanent hearing damage. So where did this thing even come from, and where is it being used today? Let's take a quick look at how it went from being a very specific military tool to something you might see on city streets. So the story really kicks off back in 2000. After the tragic bombing of the USS Cole, the U.S. Navy had a problem. They needed a way to communicate with unidentified ships from a safe distance. So, by 2003, the first LRAD was developed. But it didn't stay on the water. In 2009, it was used for the first time against protesters in the U.S. at the G20 summit in Pittsburgh. And ever since, it's been surrounded by controversy, leading to moments like in 2021, when the NYPD actually settled a lawsuit and agreed to stop using that painful alert tone on crowds. And when you look at it, this tech is used for a surprisingly wide range of things. It's on naval ships to ward off pirates. Police use it in hostage situations. Airports use it to scare birds off runways. No, really. And emergency services use it to broadcast evacuation orders during a hurricane or a wildfire. It's incredibly versatile. But honestly, the most mind-bending part of this whole story isn't about the sounds you can hear. It's about the invisible energy that travels with them, and what that energy can do to the human body. This is where the science gets really, really interesting. Okay, so we've covered the loud, piercing, audible tones. We get it. They're painful. But what about the sounds that are so low, so deep that our ears can't even pick them up? If you can't hear it, it can't hurt you, right? Well, welcome to the world of infrasound. These are basically sound waves that vibrate so slowly, below 20 hertz, that they fall beneath the floor of what humans can hear. You don't hear infrasound like you'd hear a song, but your body can absolutely feel its energy. It's more of a vibration, a pressure. And because its wavelengths are just so long and powerful, infrasound does some really weird stuff. It can travel for miles and miles without losing much energy. It can pass straight through solid objects, like the walls of a building. And wildest of all, it can actually get amplified inside a closed space, like a room or a car, through a physics phenomenon called resonance. And this isn't just theory, we have actual data. A 2021 study published by the NIH took living human heart muscle cells, actual cardiac tissue, in a lab, and hit them with high levels of infrasound. And the result? It was pretty shocking. The muscle's ability to contract dropped significantly. At 110 decibels, its force dropped by 11%. At 120 decibels, it dropped by a whopping 18%. And hey, don't just take my word for it. Here's the direct conclusion from the researchers themselves. They found that this high-level infrasound starts to interfere with the fundamental ability of heart muscle to do its job, and it can happen after just 1 hour of exposure. That is a measured biological effect.
So, all of this brings us to the final piece of the puzzle. You have this incredibly powerful device with effects you can see and effects you can't. So, what are the rules? Well, this is a classic case of technology moving way faster than the law.
Because you have to remember, this isn't just about hearing damage or the weird effects on heart tissue. These devices are intentionally designed to have a powerful psychological impact. It's not just about getting a crowd to move, it's about the feeling that this inescapable sound creates.
One legal analysis put it very, very bluntly. It said that when used a certain way, the goal is literally creating fear and terror, to act as a symbol of overwhelming power and menace. It basically weaponizes the psychological power of sound itself.
And here's the kicker. We have all sorts of international laws about bullets, bombs, and chemical weapons. But when it comes to sonic weapons, there's this huge legal gap. International humanitarian law just doesn't have any specific rules that regulate their use, especially when the intent is to create terror.
So, as you can imagine, the debate is still raging. When you boil it down, the concerns are pretty clear. The real potential for permanent physical harm, the argument from civil liberties groups that these things have no place at protest period, the documented lack of proper training for the people operating them, and all the ongoing court battles over whether you can even truly call them less lethal. It all leaves us with a really big, really important question. Look, this technology isn't going anywhere. In fact, it's only going to get more powerful and more sophisticated. So how do we, as a society, decide how to use it? Where exactly is that fine line between communication, control, and actual unacceptable harm? That's the question we're all going to have to figure out.